You're listening to episode 177 of the D6 Podcast.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect the church and home. I hope that you guys listened last week to our D6 conference preview. If you haven't done that, I encourage you to do that if you're heading to the D6 conference this year. But today we have a guest that you might not have heard of, a great pastor in Florida. But what he and his church were able to accomplish is something that has taken a little bit of the world by storm. It's been featured in newspapers, magazines, television shows. The whole area in Florida where this church is, they were just blown away by what this church was able to accomplish. And it's actually something your church can accomplish too. So we're going to be giving you all kinds of tips on how to really make a huge impact in your city with our guest, Dan Glenn, pastor at Stetson Baptist Church in DeLand, Florida. But before we move too far, how are we doing, Mr. Ron Hunter?
I am doing very well, Jeremy. I'm excited to hear about what Dan is doing. You and I were talking off the air about it, and this is one of those monumental solutions brought to families that the average person just doesn't think about. And the fact that you and he have history that go back some time. Where did you guys meet?
Yeah, we talk about it in the interview. We were in Kosciuszko, Mississippi back in the day. We did a Royal Ambassador camp where we talked about it pretty thoroughly. Where we cut our teeth. I was 18 years old at this camp, so Dan and I knew each other way before either one of us could be taken seriously at all. we were.
But you're both still in ministry, and you're both doing powerful things.
What a really, and it's kind of fun for me to see him in a suit, looking all serious, because my memories are shorts and a t-shirt, sweating it out in Mississippi with a bunch of kids having fun, talking about Jesus. It's good times.
Oh my goodness.
But listen, medical debt's no joke. I mean,
it's not.
I've told you I've been through cancer, so I got firsthand see it's not cheap. I know you have been through that piece of it. Your wife's been through cancer as well.
That's right.
And just medical debt, it can get you and take hold of you and mess with you. And so,
especially if it occurs at a time when you do not have coverage. For whatever reason, circumstance, you find yourself in that predicament, you can find yourself really upside down in some debt that can be crippling.
Yeah. And so what Dan and his church did was they really wanted to address they were looking for ways to just show the love of Christ to their community. To I love it when a church has this message. It's what all our message should be, which is we aren't as interested in you attending our church as we are just making a difference in our community. We are willing to earn the right to be heard.
That's exactly
with love, right?
Yes.
With a loving action
and
gesture.
to be respected at the same time, that knowing that whatever circumstance occurred in our life, that we still have value.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're upside down in whatever issue it is, you feel like there's no value attached back to your life.
So I don't want you to check out on this and hear that Dan and his church were able to take care of $7 million of medical debt and go, oh my goodness, my church would never be able to do that. Here's a newsflash. Dan's church is not a mega church. I mean, it's not a little itty bitty church, but it's not mega.
No.
And it's you'll be amazed. This is actually something your church could do. So if it sounds in any way interesting to you, you're going to really enjoy that interview in just a little bit. But for now, I want to talk really quickly about a resource you guys are releasing. And you have a series by Dr. Edward Moody called First Aid. and it's got all kinds of neat stuff. But you've released one called First Aid for the Minister, and that's a little bit. I want you to explain that a little bit to our audience.
Yeah, here's the deal. When you have expert counselors at the level of Dr. Edward Moody, who literally has been teaching this at a secular college in North Carolina. So, I mean, his credentials, if I showed you his resume, it would blow you away. And you don't need to see that resume to know that Dr. Moody knows his stuff. And as a result, he's always getting phone calls going, hey, I've got this problem. I've got this. I got a person in my church with this. And that's how all of these first aid booklets were written, from whether it's working with veterans, whether it's working with depression or addiction or sexual issues, and there's like 12 or 14 of those titles out there on specific areas. But in the midst of ministry leaders requiring resources for their congregation, Dr. Moody was regularly getting questions from the ministers themselves. And that prompted this book to go, you know what? If our church is going to be healthy counseling-wise, that pastoral family also has to be counseled, cared for, and nurtured. And so this book is written for the ministry family, that minister. And it's thicker than the other books. It's got a lot more content, because we know our ministers will read deeper than some of their congregation members. But that's how it came about, Jeremy, is that regular need that Dr. Moody has lived through in the last decade or so, that he's been writing all these books.
Man, we need more of those kinds of resources.
Yes,
that's cool.
We do. By the way, you can get all of his kit. What I've found that ministers do, by and large, and it caused us to respond accordingly, is that they want at least one of all of his booklets. His booklets are very inexpensive, and they're very thin and quick to read, but they provide they're packed chock full of just quick answers, quick solutions, quick help for people in crisis. But when somebody comes to you in crisis, you don't want to go, hey, I'll order you a book and it'll be here in 2 days. You want to be able to reach on the shelf and hand it to them right there. So our recommendation is what we've seen hundreds of churches do, is go and just buy at least one copy of all of his resources. Again, I think they're like $5 a piece, and if you're buying 14, we got them in a kit. And the kit is, in fact, I think if you go to our website, it's $59.99. So you get a tremendous discount. But you literally can reach in the box, this first aid kit, and pull one out and go, okay, here's what you need for your family, your son, your daughter, your wife, whatever it is. Immediately provide some insight and solutions from a professional counselor.
I've interviewed Dr. Moody a ton, and every time I do, I try to say that this resource, we have all kinds of resources, but this one actually can get you out of trouble.
Yes.
Because sometimes we make the mistake of counseling when we shouldn't counsel because we aren't qualified to deal with it. And this is the kind of resource that'll help you know the difference. And it's a really well worth your effort, time to read it, and your resources to grab it. So thank you for introducing that to us. I want to make sure we chatted about that. But now let's take a quick break, and we are going to come back with what I think is an idea you can steal. And our guest, Dan Glenn, is so happy for you to take this idea and use it in your church. I think it's something that can make huge impact in your city and surrounding counties. So I hope you enjoy it. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Dan Glenn about this amazing initiative that his church did that really made a huge impact. I know we're always looking for ways as ministers, ministries, and churches to make huge impacts. We didn't get into ministry to play small ball. We want to do big things. And I've got a friend today who is going to show us and teach us how he was able to do something that probably he didn't even imagine was possible. And I can't wait for you guys to meet our guest today. He's going to give you an idea that you can actually do that will probably, I hope, surprise you and inspire you. Our guest today is the senior pastor of Stetson Baptist Church in DeLand, Florida, and his name is Dan Glenn. What's up, Dan?
How's it going?
Man, I'm honored to have you, sir. Now, listen, the reason I got in touch with Dan was I was just scrolling through the feed like we all do, just scrolling, and all of a sudden I see a picture of my friend Dan Glenn, who we go back a long way.
Long way.
I mean, I was 18. How old were you when we worked at camp together?
I think I was probably 19. I think I'm only a year older than you.
We were 18, 19 years old, and we were in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, right outside Possum Neck, Mississippi.
That's right, just east of where?
with Brother Dan. Is
That's
that right,
right,
Brother Dan?
That's right, Dan West.
Mm. And so we worked at a Royal Ambassador camp together back in the day. We literally started together, and so it's been fun to watch.
Sleeping in a tent in the Mississippi summer.
Sleeping in a tent in the Mississippi summer where there was no one but us.
It was ridiculous.
$200 a week, and we changed the bed sheets when the kids wet the bed. We served the food in the cafeteria. We mowed the grass.
That's right.
I mean, we did all that.
It was awesome.
Wasn't it, though? Sometimes you just want to go back to that. I mean...
No, I don't.
but it was carefree, Dan. You didn't have to
It was. I loved it, but still. Woo!
Yeah, we learned how to work hard, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And we also learned how to do flagpole chants, which, by the way, I have memories of beating your group constantly. I don't mean to talk trash about flagpole chants, but...
I have memories of not caring about that flagpole chants and just coming up with something because I had to.
Well, that's because you weren't a big boy like me, because the winner of the flagpole chants got to go to eat first, and I didn't want to wait in line for my food, so we put work into it. All right. So anyway, we reconnected to schedule this interview because when I saw what you guys did, and listen, here's kind of what we're proposing today, and I want you to understand. Dan's church, it's not like, Dan, you have a large church, but it's not mega church. We're not talking about top whatever. You're not on rankings, right? You're not. So
nowhere close.
The people that are listening to this, and the reason why I bring that up is because I want you guys to understand what Dan and his church were able to accomplish for the kingdom of God is completely possible for any others. But you were able to pay off $7.2 million in medical debt for over 6,500 individuals below the poverty line in 5 Florida counties where you serve. So that is huge. And I just want you to walk us through where the idea began and how you were able to do that. And then maybe teach us how we could possibly do that in our churches.
Yeah. So we kind of discovered an anomaly in our fiscal calendar. And, this happens every once in a while for people. Our fiscal year runs July to June. And so in this last fiscal year that just closed on June the 30th, we had 53 Sundays. Well, like most churches, when you have an annual budget, you kind of have 52 weeks in the year. You divide your annual budget by 52 weeks so that every week when people come to church, you kind of know where you need to be in offerings so that you can kind of track well and meet your annual budget. That's basically how it went. And so we discovered that in this fiscal year, we had 53 Sundays. So we had a bonus Sunday.
That's right.
So we started talking about that.
Which means you should have better vacation this year. Why are you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, honestly, there are some things that we could have done here at the church. We need new carpet in our sanctuary. We are, our some of our buildings are older and they certainly need some upkeep and some renovation. But we just kept thinking about it, kept talking about it, and we thought, what if we did something that was just completely crazy? And we decided that we would just take an offering for the express purpose of giving it away. So every dollar that came in on that 53rd Sunday was just going to flow right through the church and out to the community. And so we talked about it. We talked with our church council. Our church staff got on board. Our church council was on board. And we decided that everything that came in on June the 30th, which was our 53rd Sunday, would be given away. And so that giveaway was really focused on 2 separate ministries. One was to support a foster care home for a year through the Florida Baptist Children's Home. Another name for that ministry is One More Child. And the other would be towards RIP medical debt, which is the idea of paying off medical debt at a fraction of the cost of what it is. So long story short, our goal that day was $48,000. What that would do, $24,000 would fund fund the support of a foster care home for a year, their upkeep, their utilities, their groceries, for a family, a home that housed about 7 to 8 foster children. And the other side of that, the other $24,000 would go to pay off all of the crippling medical debt in Volusia County, where we're located. Volusia County is a fairly large county. It goes all the way to the beach. It includes Daytona Beach, it includes DeLand, some other pretty large residential areas. So a lot of people here, $2.4 million in crippling medical debt. Now, that's not all the medical debt. That's people that are at or near the poverty line, that if they paid their own debt, it would send them into bankruptcy, would make their family insolvent. So it really was it's really paying the debt for those that literally cannot pay for themselves. So our original goal was $48,000, $24,000 here, $24,000 there. That $24,000 would pay off $2.4 million in medical debt. I'll share with you how that works here in just a second.
Yeah, I'm going to need an explanation, but we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll come back there. When all was said and done, our church just really, we announced on June the 9th, so just a few weeks before, we said we're going to do this 53rd Sunday offering thing. My sermon that day was, we need to love the people that Jesus loved, and we need to love people how Jesus loved them. And so we need to love people in a very practical way. And so we said we're going to take this offering. People got excited about it. On June the 30th, we took that offering. On the very next day, when the people that count our offering called and said, so how much do you think the offering was? We were in staff meeting and we started throwing out some numbers, and it was above all of our expectations. On that one day, $144,000 had come in.
See, that's amazing.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I hoped that we would exceed that original goal, but I never dreamed that we would more than triple it.
Yeah.
Never. Over the course of the next week, another almost $10,000 came in. And so when we announced on July the 7th the results of our offering, we were at just under $154,000 for that offering.
Man.
So pretty stinking exciting. Yeah. It really was. And so all that to say, when the effects of that offering were that we did pay off all of the crippling medical debt in Volusia County, but we also paid off all the crippling medical debt in Lake County, Flagler County, Putnam County, and Marion County, which are 4 other counties surrounding ours. We also supported that one foster care home for a year, but we were able to support 3 foster care homes through Florida Baptist Children's Home for a year. So unbelievable opportunity. Unbelievable. Yeah. And I think the benefit was people just got excited about their church doing something that was totally not self-serving. Mm-hmm. It was 100% about the community and about reaching out into other people's lives that had need. Pretty great.
Absolutely great. Now, after all of this happened, mm-hmm. I saw media outlets started to contact you because you've done television interviews, newspaper interviews. You're now doing a podcast interview. It's kind of blown up a little bit. And
that's an understatement.
Tell me about the response to all of this and kind of what you're learning from that.
We have had so much coverage over this, almost to the point of being a little bit uncomfortable, because I've never done a television interview before. I've never, but what an unbelievable opportunity for us as a church to say, okay, God's given us this platform for probably a really short amount of time, and we understand that. But what can we do to lift the name of Jesus and to lift the attitude and the spirit and the view of the church in the community in this time? Not just our church, but the church. We want people to see an example from a church that the church is about reaching people, is about making a difference in the name of Christ in people's lives. And I think when we do that, people have it's the outpouring has been unbelievable. I was on the this Monday. I was on the Good Morning Orlando show for Fox in our area.
That's awesome.
I've never done anything like that before, you know, and so I was nervous. I was scared, but again, just an opportunity for us to say, our goal was to make a practical difference in people's lives. We don't want to just tell people that Jesus loves them. We want to show them that Jesus loves them. And so this was a way for us to do that.
Wow. All right. So
Yeah.
I'm sure, hopefully ministers are listening to this going, okay, this sounds possible. We would love to have that kind of impact in our community and be able to have that kind of opportunity to honor Jesus. And medical debt is such a huge issue. I mean, I've been through cancer. I understand the expenses. It is
Right.
it is overwhelming. And
Sure.
so you're doing huge things for people who are really, because when you're sick, the last thing you need is to try to figure out how to pay to get better. You're just trying to survive, right? And so,
Correct.
man, what you're doing is so cool. And I know others want to do it. So will you please walk us through, first of all, how 24,000, or I can't remember the exact number, was able to convert into millions, and then give us a tutorial. How can we do it?
Yeah. So it's actually really, really simple. First of all, the end result was $72,000 was able to pay off $7.2 million in crippling medical debt. And so that's where we were able to affect 6,500 families, not just individuals, families that are suffering under these, huge loads of medical debt that they literally can't pay themselves. And so how does that work? Well, first of all, we teamed with an organization called RIP Medical Debt, and you can find them on the web. They've become very popular, and an organization they were great to work with. Basically, we just sent them a request and said, we'd like to talk about this. They gave us a call. They shared with us what the medical debt and the impact of that was right in our county. And they just basically said, this is how that would work. And so they shared with us $24,000 would pay off $2.4 million in medical debt.
So before you go too far, let me get this out. RIP, like rest in peace. RIPmedicaldebt.org is where they can go.
Putting medical debt to peace. That's exactly right.
There you go. Okay. You can keep going, sir.
So again, layman's terms, and somebody that went on their website could probably find a little bit better explanation. They have a really great kind of video that helps you to understand what they're doing. But basically, they purchase what is considered bad debt from either hospitals or debt collection agencies. And because it is bad debt, those organizations have tried to collect on it. They will sell that debt for pennies on the dollar because they would rather get pennies on the dollar than get nothing. And so the people that actually run RIP Medical Debt are former debt collectors. So they understand the process and they understand the kind of the mindset behind how that works. And so they're able to, because of their experience and because of their donors, they're able to negotiate the cost of that down to what literally amounts to a penny on the dollar. So when you pay $24,000, you actually pay off $2.4 million in medical debt. So what RIP Medical Debt does is they go to the collection agencies and the hospitals, they purchase that for a penny on the dollar, and then what they do is they, rather than collecting it, they just simply send a letter to all of the people who have that medical debt saying, your debt is forgiven, it's paid in full. And so because of that, because they're not actually exchanging money, it's even a beautiful thing because it's not taxable. So those people that are having their debts forgiven, it's not taxable because it's just all they're getting is a letter. They're not getting money; they're just getting a letter. And so so RIP Medical Debt is just saying we bought the debt, we're just not going to collect it. Isn't that awesome?
Unbelievable. Do they tell people who paid it, or is it just anonymous?
No, we have an option. We have an opportunity, and we're actually working on that right now, where we will get the information about the letter that will be sent. And so you can have it be anonymous. We don't want it to be anonymous,
Sure.
not for the fame of our church, but because we want to connect with these families and let them know that, okay, we did a practical thing in your life, but we want to do a spiritual thing in your life as well.
That's so cool.
It's an opportunity for us to connect with them and continue to have that influence and have that, this is going to be a letter that they're going to get. We want to know them and have a relationship with them.
Listen, Dan, I can't imagine other churches not following your example. This podcast goes out to thousands and thousands of ministers. So this is getting me just geeked talking to you about this, because you're really empowering other churches as well. How cool could this be? We talk about, you'll hear people say, we wouldn't need government agencies to help with the poor if the church just did its job, and this kind of flies in the face of those critics, which gets me kind of excited. Is like, if the more churches will jump into this, what a cool way for us to do very specifically what Jesus asked us to do.
That's exactly right. It's an unbelievable opportunity. And I think sometimes people might think, well, our church wouldn't be able to raise $150,000. Listen, $10,000 pays off $1 million in medical debt.
I think that's obviously that's the win here. The math is in your favor. I mean, because
absolutely.
Let's break it down. Let's just get real. When you're trying to inspire people, one of the reasons why you throw out numbers, and you and I both know, we've been in this long enough. Numbers can be used to manipulate. Numbers can be, and I love your spirit, Dan, and because I know you so well, it's easy to believe that you're not wanting glory for your church or yourself. That's obvious. And thank you for the way you're presenting this, that it's about the mission that you're involved in. But so all of that's true. But the numbers are absolutely amazing. 10,000 multiplying to $1 million worth of impact. When the math is in your favor like that, it's kind of awesome. It's kind of amazing and inspiring.
There are stories, and I when you go onto this RIP Medical Debt website, you'll read stories of kids using their birthday money to pay off medical debt. And okay, so that's probably not $10,000 even. But if it's $100, they just paid off $10,000 in medical debt. I mean, what an impact.
Unbelievable impact. So, okay, I neglected to ask you this off air, but I'm hoping we can edit it out if you don't want to offer this. But if a minister wants to talk to you about the ins and outs, how would you want them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so first, my email address is Dan@Stetson, like the hat and the nasty smelling cologne, .church. So Dan@Stetson.church is my email address. And then my Twitter handle is, you're going to love this, is @Brodan. So
Brodan.
Man, I've had that for a long time. BRODAN.
Well, hey, if you guys want to get in touch with him, thank you for offering that, by the way. I should have asked you beforehand, but I appreciate
no
that.
Problem.
So therefore, you in this podcast today, if you've listened to it, you've gotten a great idea, hopefully a really cool way to inspire your congregation to be a part of a mission that's greater than yourself. A way to connect with hurting families. We should have highlighted that more. A way to connect with hurting families in your county, because they're going to find out that this church did this for me. And it's a way to connect with hurting families that need ministry. So cool. And then finally, you've got an actual person who's willing to coach you through the process, and an organization that's already established that you can see has done it. So hopefully all of this leads you to some action. I hope this inspires you. Get with Dan if you need to. Hey, Dan, thanks for being with us.
Man, no problem. Enjoyed it. Good to catch up.
Hey, I love simple things. That's if you grab anything from this organization, RIP Medical Debt, that literally pennies on the dollar.
Yes.
So maybe you can't raise the 100 and something thousand that they did, but if you raise just a couple of thousand, that turns into tens of thousands.
That's right. And it means something to those people who are hurting.
And that's real. When I first heard about this, I got a little bit nervous. I was like, am I promoting a bait and switches? But it's really not, because that is real medical debt.
Yes.
And it is and just simply because of the finances and the math of it all, you're able to take a little and make a huge impact.
That's right. I think I shared with you off air that even in our area here in Nashville, one of our leading, and I don't remember if it was a CBS, ABC, or NBC affiliate, but they did that for a period of time. And so I'm telling you that this is not, as Jeremy said, a bait and switch. It's not, something small out there, but this is something that more and more people need to take advantage of. And if you provide help to a family like that, tell me that when they don't go looking for a church, they don't come to the one that helped them at their biggest crisis moment that they're feeling right now.
And I think when we talk about programs like this, I think it's important for us to say you aren't getting any kind of promotional fees to promote this company or anything like that. Dan's just a friend, and I actually the article showed up on my Facebook feed, and I thought, oh my goodness, what has Dan done? And then we just got to see this. That's how we happened upon this story, and we thought, oh my gosh, this is transferable, which is a core value of our podcast.
Right. That's right.
This is something that our listeners can actually do. So we just encourage you to do your research, check into it, look into the organization yourself, make sure it's the right fit for you. But one of the things that you heard in that interview that I want to make sure I repeat, so make sure you take note of, is that Dan was able to let the people who received the help, they knew where the help came from. So therefore, by knowing it came from that church, they understood that the message of that church and the one who is the founder of that church, meaning Jesus, was the actual donor of that gift. And I just love that. I love that all of that was available. So I hope this was inspiring to some of you.
I'm thankful how God used a friendship of yours back from your youth camp days to turn this back around, that literally could bring solutions to more people's lives than we can ever imagine, all because you remember Dan and what he's doing.
And I just make one request. If there's anybody who hears this and is inspired and you actually pull it off, even if you raise $20. And if you decide to try this in your church and you do it, will you please report back to us and let us know what that experience was like? We'll give you a shout out on the podcast.
That's right.
We love hearing from you guys and want to know if maybe this inspired some of you. All right, now when we talk about next week, I've got another friend from back in my camp days. This was another camp. I did a lot of camping back in the day. But Jason Pyron, he is now head over all of the age grade ministries at Bellevue Baptist in Memphis. If you don't know that church, it's a great history, very large church in Memphis, one of the largest churches in the country. And Jason has that view of getting to see how family ministry is done all the way from birth, all the way through college and even young singles. He also gives incredible feedback on intern programs. They have one of the best intern programs I've ever heard of, and he has some incredible feedback on that as well. Jason is one of those, he's just so full of wisdom, and he's untapped. I don't think anybody has done a good enough job grabbing all the knowledge and experience that's in Jason's mind. So we're going to start that process next week. So please come back and be a part of our podcast. When we hear from Jason Pyron, he's going to be talking to you and giving you great practical stuff you could actually use in your church. Until then, we hope you guys have a great week of ministry.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.